to my beautiful new life," he said, raising his champagne glass in front of 12 guests. He had just closed a $33 million deal. His wife sat right beside him. She spent 3 hours getting ready. New dress, hair done, pearl earrings he gave her for their anniversary. He didn't look at her once, not during the toast, not during dinner, not when she reached for his hand under the table and he pulled away. But the worst part wasn't the toast. It wasn't even what he said to her outside by the valet stand. The words, "I've outgrown this marriage. I've outgrown this," while his hand gestured at her body from head to toe. No. The worst part was what she found when she got home. His closet, half empty, his bags already packed, and their wedding album left open on the kitchen counter with a Post-it note. One word. Remember? He remembered what she used to look like. He forgot what she built for him. She built his company from a garage with a card table and a fax machine. She made cold calls while 8 months pregnant. She designed his first office, his logo, his brand. She carried his stress, his ambition, his ego for 22 years. She gained 40 pounds, carrying his life on her back, and the night he got rich, he threw her away. But here is the thing he didn't know. He didn't know about the forged documents. He didn't know about the hidden accounts. And he definitely didn't know that his wife's name was still on the original partnership agreement, 10% of everything. This is the story of a woman who was told she wasn't enough, and the man who destroyed his own empire the moment he believed it. This story carries a message that every woman needs to hear. Your worth is not measured by your dress size, your age, or how well you serve someone else's dream. The woman who loses herself for love is not weak. She is strong enough to give everything. But the moment she stops giving it away and starts keeping it for herself, that is when the real power begins. If this story touched something inside you, you are not alone. If this resonated with you, leave a comment and tell me what moment hit you the hardest. Hit that like button if you believe every woman deserves to be seen. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Every story on this channel is created for women like you, strong, resilient, unbreakable.
"To my beautiful new life," Grant said, raising his champagne glass toward the chandelier. He wasn't looking at Colleen. She noticed. Of course she noticed. 22 years of marriage had trained her to read the angle of his jaw, the direction of his gaze, the slight tilt of his glass. Tonight, every signal pointed away from her. The private dining room at Marchetti's smelled like seared steak and expensive cologne. 12 guests surrounded the long table. Investors in tailored suits, their wives in silk. 2 junior partners who laughed too loud at Grant's jokes. The candlelight caught the crystal, throwing tiny rainbows across the white tablecloth. Grant Mercer had just closed the biggest deal of his career, $33 million. His logistics company, Mercer Distribution, had been acquired by one of the largest supply chain networks on the East Coast. 20 years of work. One massive payday. Colleen had spent 3 hours getting ready. She chose the navy dress because it was forgiving. She had her hair blown out at the salon. She wore the pearl earrings Grant gave her for their 20th anniversary. She told herself she looked fine. Fine. That word again. The word women use when they've stopped believing in beautiful. Grant worked the room like a politician. He shook hands. He clapped shoulders. He told the story of the early days 3 different times, each version slightly more heroic than the last. In every version, he built the company alone. In every version, the garage was his vision, his sacrifice, his genius. Colleen sipped her wine and smiled. She reached for his hand under the table once, just once. His fingers were there, resting near his knife. She touched them. He pulled away, reached for his phone, checked a notification, put it back. She told herself he was excited, distracted. It was his night. Her phone buzzed, a text from her sister Delia. "Did he seriously just skip you in the toast?" Colleen typed back under the table. "He's just excited. It's fine." It was not fine. The dinner plates were cleared. Dessert arrived. Chocolate something. Colleen couldn't taste it. She watched Grant lean across the table to whisper something to an investor's wife. The woman laughed, touched her collarbone. Grant smiled his best smile, the one he used to aim at Colleen. One by one, the guests said their goodbyes. Handshakes, air kisses, promises to get together soon. The room emptied slowly, like water draining from a bathtub. Colleen stood and smoothed her dress. She picked up her clutch. She waited by the door. Grant was settling the bill. He signed the receipt without looking at the total. That was new. For years, he had calculated tips to the penny. Now he didn't care. $33 million had rearranged his relationship with money overnight. They walked outside together. The Charlotte night air was thick and humid. August. Cicadas screamed from the magnolia trees lining the sidewalk. The valet stand glowed under a yellow lamp. Grant stopped walking. Colleen stopped too. "I want a divorce," he said. The words landed like stones, dropped into still water. Colleen heard them. She understood the individual sounds, but her brain refused to arrange them into meaning. She laughed. Not a real laugh. The kind of laugh that escapes when the body doesn't know what else to do. A short, confused burst of air. "What?" she said. "I'm serious, Colleen." His voice was flat, rehearsed. He had practiced this. She could hear the preparation in every syllable. "I've outgrown this marriage. I've outgrown this." He gestured at her. His hand moved from her face down to her feet. All of her. Everything she was, dismissed with a wave. The valet attendant stood 6 feet away, holding someone else's keys, pretending to look at his phone. "Grant," Colleen said. Her voice cracked on his name. "It's your celebration night. You've had champagne. Let's talk about this tomorrow." "I've been thinking about this for months," he said. "The deal just gave me the courage to finally say it." Courage. He called it courage. "There's someone else," Colleen said, not a question. Grant didn't deny it. He didn't confirm it either. He just looked at her with an expression she had never seen before. Pity. He pitied her. "I'll have my attorney draw up papers," he said. "Try to keep this civilized." Civilized. The word landed like a slap. He turned toward the valet stand, handed over his ticket. His car arrived first, a black Mercedes he bought 3 months ago. He got in without looking back. The tail lights disappeared around the corner. Colleen stood alone under the yellow lamp. The cicadas screamed. Her clutch was digging into her palm. She realized she had been squeezing it so hard that the clasp had left a red mark on her skin. The valet brought her car, a 6-year-old Lexus with a dent in the rear bumper she never got fixed. She tipped the young man $5. He said, "Have a good night, ma'am." She almost laughed again. She drove home. 43 minutes on Interstate 77. The radio was playing a song from their wedding reception, "At Last" by Etta James. She didn't change it. She didn't cry. She gripped the steering wheel at 10 and 2 and drove exactly the speed limit the entire way. The house was dark when she pulled into the driveway. The porch light was off. Grant always left the porch light on for her, not tonight. She walked inside. The kitchen smelled like the lavender candle she had lit before leaving. It had burned down to a stub. Wax pooled on the counter. She walked upstairs. The bedroom door was open. The closet stopped her. Grant's side was half empty. His suits, gone. His watch case, gone. The leather weekender bag he took on business trips, gone. He had packed before the dinner. Before the toast, Before the champagne. He knew what he was going to say, and he packed first. She stood in the closet doorway for a long time. The empty hangers swayed slightly from the air conditioning. They made a soft clicking sound against each other. Click, click, click. She walked back downstairs. The kitchen counter held one item that hadn't been there before. Their wedding album, brown leather, gold lettering. He had taken it from the bookshelf in the living room and left it open. The page showed them on the dance floor. Colleen at 20 years old, laughing, thin, her hair wild from dancing. Grant holding her waist with both hands. Both of them radiating a happiness so pure it looked like a different species of emotion. A yellow post-it note was stuck to the page. One word in Grant's handwriting. Remember? Colleen stared at it. Her chest tightened. Her eyes burned. But the tears didn't come. Not yet. Something harder than sadness had settled in her sternum. Something that felt like a door locking. She closed the album. She turned off the lavender candle. She walked to the bathroom, turned on the faucet, splashed cold water on her face, and looked at herself in the mirror. 42 years old, dark circles from the sleepless nights she'd been having for months. Crow's feet. A softness around her jaw that wasn't there 5 years ago. She looked tired. She looked like a woman who had been carrying something heavy for a very long time. She turned off the light. She did not sleep that night. Morning came like an unwanted guest. Gray light pushed through the bedroom curtains. Birds sang outside as if nothing had changed. The world continued its routine with insulting indifference. Colleen was sitting at the kitchen island, still wearing the navy dress from last night. Her shoes were off. Her hair had fallen from its careful arrangement. Cold coffee sat in front of her. She had poured it an hour ago and hadn't taken a sip. Her phone showed 14 missed calls. Delia, 3 times, her mother, twice, 2 friends who must have heard something, the rest from numbers she didn't recognize. She couldn't call anyone back. What would she say? The words hadn't formed yet. The sentence, "My husband left me," felt like a foreign language. She could feel it in her mouth, but couldn't make it sound real. At 7:15, her phone buzzed. A text from Grant. "I'll have Russell draw up papers. Try to keep this civilized. For the kids." For the kids, he had evoked their children like a shield, as if mentioning Nora and Teddy would distract from the fact that he'd packed his bags before dessert. Colleen set the phone face down on the counter. The marble was cold under her wrists. For the next hour, she sat there and did something she hadn't allowed herself to do in years. She replayed every conversation, every silence, every look away. Grant's business dinners, every Thursday for the past year. She had never been invited. He said they were boring client stuff. She'd pack him a clean shirt and kiss his cheek when he left. He started wearing a new cologne around that time. Something sharp and woody. She didn't buy it for him. She never asked who did. January. He joined a gym. Grant Mercer, who hadn't exercised in a decade, suddenly waking at 5 in the morning to lift weights. She had been happy about it. She told her sister, "He's finally taking care of himself." Delia said nothing. Delia always said nothing when she was biting her tongue. The way he stopped using her name, she became, "Hey." Then she became nothing. He'd walk into a room and start talking without addressing her, as if she were furniture. Permanent, functional, invisible. 6 months ago, she asked him. She remembered the exact moment. They were in the kitchen. He was pouring bourbon. She was cleaning up after dinner. The kids were upstairs. "Are we okay?" she asked. He didn't look up. "We're fine. Stop being paranoid." The memory burned now, not because of what he said, because of what she did next. She believed him. She apologized for asking. She finished the dishes. She went to bed. I wasn't paranoid, she thought now, sitting in last night's dress. I was right. I was right, and he made me feel insane for knowing it. The kitchen clock ticked. 9:23 in the morning. Colleen set down the cold coffee and walked to the living room bookshelf. She pulled out a photo album. Not the wedding one, the older one, the one from the beginning, Grant's first office. A card table in their garage, with a phone, a fax machine, and a filing cabinet, Colleen bought at a yard sale for $12. She took the photo herself. Grant was 22, khaki pants, a tie he borrowed from his father. He looked terrified and determined in equal measure. What the photo didn't show was Colleen on the other side of the garage, sitting on a folding chair, 8 months pregnant with Nora, cold calling potential clients from a list she'd compiled at the public library. She designed that first office. Not metaphorically, she literally designed it, measured the space, painted the walls, built shelves from lumber and brackets. When real investors visited for the first time, she staged the garage to look like a legitimate operation. She placed a potted fern next to the filing cabinet. She framed Grant's business license and hung it at eye level. She made coffee in a real carafe instead of the chipped mug they actually used. She handled the books for the first 3 years. She built the first website using a library computer and a how-to guide. She checked out twice. She cooked dinners for clients in their tiny kitchen while Nora slept in a bassinet beside the stove. When the company grew, Colleen grew with it. She designed the first real office space downtown. She chose the furniture, the paint colors, the logo that still appeared on every Mercer distribution truck. Then the company grew more, and Colleen grew less. The transition happened so slowly she didn't recognize it. Grant hired a real accountant, then a marketing team, then an office manager. One by one, the jobs Colleen did were handed to professionals. No one fired her. She just became unnecessary in stages. She stopped designing, stopped working entirely. She became Grant's wife. She drove the kids to school. She organized fundraisers at the PTA. She decorated the house for every holiday. She maintained the social calendar. She smiled. She ate dinner alone most nights because Grant was working. She ordered takeout because cooking for one felt pathetic. She ate standing at the counter because sitting at the dining table alone felt worse. The weight came gradually. 5 pounds a year. 40 pounds over 8 years. She bought new clothes. Then she stopped buying new clothes. Then she stopped looking at herself in fitting rooms. Nobody told her she was disappearing, or maybe everyone could see it, except her. Colleen closed the photo album. Her chest ached. Not sharp pain, the dull, heavy kind. The kind that settles in like weather. Her phone rang. Delia. "Are you alive?" Delia said. "I'm here. I'm coming over." "Not yet." "Colleen, I need a day. Please." Delia was quiet for 3 seconds. "One day, then I'm breaking down the door." By evening, Colleen had showered and changed clothes. She drove to the grocery store because the refrigerator was empty and she needed to do something normal. She bought milk, bread, bananas, things she didn't need and wouldn't eat. She stood in the cereal aisle for 4 minutes, staring at Grant's brand. Honey Nut Cheerios. She always bought them. Every single week for 22 years. She left without buying them. She left without buying anything else either. She pulled into her own driveway. The house was lit. The garage was open. Everything looked normal from the outside. Warm windows, trimmed bushes, a house that said, "A happy family lives here." She sat in the parked car for 20 minutes, her hands on the wheel, the engine off. She could see the kitchen through the front window, the counter where the wedding album still sat, the light above the stove that she always left on. She couldn't go inside. She sat there until the automatic porch light turned off from the timer. Then she sat in the dark for 5 more minutes. Then she went inside. At 11 that night, she found it. She wasn't looking for it. She was straightening Grant's nightstand. Habit. She always straightened his nightstand. Glasses of water he left, receipts from his pockets, gum wrappers. The drawer was slightly open. Inside, beneath a copy of Forbes magazine, was a phone. Not Grant's phone. A second phone, silver, no case. She picked it up. Her hands trembled. The screen was unlocked. The messages went back 14 months. Hundreds of them. The name at the top was Bryn. Colleen read them. She sat on the edge of the bed and read every single message. The flirting, the plans, the photos, Bryn in a restaurant, Bryn at a hotel pool, Bryn in Grant's office after hours, and then a photo that made Colleen's blood stop. Bryn at a rooftop bar, smiling, holding a cocktail. In the background, clearly visible, was Nora, Colleen's daughter, at a table with friends. This was the work function Grant had mentioned 6 months ago, the one where Nora met some of Dad's colleagues. Her daughter had been in the same room as this woman, smiling, unaware. 6 feet from the affair her father was hiding. Colleen set the phone down on the bed. She pressed both palms flat against the mattress. She breathed in through her nose for 4 counts, out for 4 counts, in for 4, out for 4. I knew, she whispered to the empty room. Some part of me knew, and I let him convince me I was crazy. She picked the phone back up. She opened the photo gallery. She began screenshotting everything, every message, every photo, every timestamp. She emailed them to herself, methodically, completely, the way she used to organize client files in her design business. When she finished, it was 2 in the morning. She placed the phone back in the drawer exactly where she found it. She closed the drawer. She turned off the light. She did not sleep that night either. 3 days after the toast, Colleen's brain started doing something cruel. It replayed the good memories, not the bad ones, the good ones. The family trip to Hilton Head last summer, July. Colleen remembered the sunscreen smell, coconut and zinc. She remembered Teddy burying his feet in the sand while Nora read a novel under the umbrella. She remembered being happy. She remembered the salt air and the seagulls fighting over a dropped ice cream cone and thinking, this is what matters. Grant was on calls every afternoon of that trip. She took the kids to the beach, alone. She didn't mind. He worked so hard for them. That's what she told herself. He worked so hard for us. He was FaceTiming Bryn from the hotel balcony. The realization hit her in the shower. The water was too hot. She didn't adjust it. She just stood there while the memory rewrote itself. Every quiet afternoon on the beach. Every evening when Grant joined them for dinner smelling like hotel soap. Every night he fell asleep quickly because he was exhausted from calls. The good memories weren't good anymore. They were crime scenes. Their 20th anniversary, November. Grant made reservations at the French place downtown. Colleen wore the black dress she'd bought for the occasion, the one that was a size larger than last year. She told herself it was the cut, European sizing. Grant gave her pearl earrings. She cried at the table, real tears, gratitude, relief. She thought he was making an effort. She thought maybe the distance between them was just a phase. She thought the pearls meant he still saw her. 3 days later, she found the credit card statement while organizing household bills. 2 charges from the same jewelry store. Same day. The pearls were $480. The second charge was $960. She didn't ask about the second charge. She told herself it was a business gift. She put the statement in the file folder. She wore the pearls to church the following Sunday. God, I was so grateful for those earrings, she thought. I thanked him. I actually thanked him while he was buying her something twice as expensive with our money. The memories kept coming, contaminated, rewritten. The night he came home smelling like a perfume she didn't wear, she asked. He said the Uber driver must have been wearing air freshener. She believed him. She believed him. The weekend he said he was at a conference in Atlanta. He sent her a photo of his hotel room, beige walls, standard lamp. She said, "Looks boring," he said. "It is." 3 weeks later, she found a receipt in his jacket pocket. Not Atlanta, Charleston, a boutique hotel with a restaurant on the roof. She never asked about Charleston. She put the receipt in the trash. She ran the garbage disposal. That was 2 years ago. She had been running the garbage disposal on evidence for 2 years. At 3 in the morning, on the fourth night, Colleen sat in bed with her laptop. The blue light made her eyes ache. She opened the browser and typed, "Signs your husband is cheating." The results loaded. She scrolled through them. Sudden interest in appearance? Check. New cologne? Check. Phone always face down? Check. Defensive when questioned? Check. Then she felt it. A chill starting in the base of her spine and climbing. She checked her browser history, not the recent one, the archived one. She scrolled back. 2 years. The same search. The exact same words. Signs your husband is cheating. She had searched it in the middle of the night 2 years ago. She read 2 articles. She closed the laptop. She deleted the history. She went back to sleep beside Grant and told herself she was being ridiculous. She stared at the screen. 2 years. She had known for 2 years and talked herself out of knowing. I chose not to see it, she thought. I chose blindness because seeing it would have meant doing something, and doing something was more terrifying than staying. The laptop screen dimmed from inactivity. Her reflection appeared in the darkened screen, a ghost of herself. She closed the laptop. The next morning, she called her friend, Margot. Margot worked in commercial banking. Colleen told her just enough. I need to understand my financial situation, quietly. Margot didn't ask questions. She ran some basic checks, property records, business filings. Public financial documents. It took her 2 hours. When she called back, her voice was different, careful. Colleen, when did Grant open a second LLC? He didn't. He did, 9 months ago. Granite Holdings, LLC, and there's a property transfer to it. Silence. Which property? Colleen asked, already knowing. The lake house. Colleen's family lake house, the house her parents built in 1978 on Lake Norman. The house where she spent every summer of her childhood. The house her father left to her, specifically to her, in his will. 3 generations of memories. The dock her grandfather repaired every spring, the kitchen where her mother taught her to make pot roast, the bedroom where she lost her first tooth, transferred to a shell company 9 months ago, without her signature. That's not possible, Colleen said. I never signed anything. Margot hesitated. The transfer document has a notarized signature, your name. The room tilted. Colleen grabbed the edge of the kitchen counter. Her knuckles went white. He forged my signature, she said. The words came out flat, factual, as if she were reading a police report about someone else's life. Or he used a power of attorney? Margot said gently. Do you recall signing one? She did. 2 years ago, Grant had surgery on his knee. Minor procedure. He asked her to sign a general power of attorney in case decisions needed to be made while he was under anesthesia. She signed it at the kitchen table while making Teddy's lunch. She didn't read the fine print. She trusted him. Colleen? Margot said. Are you still there? I'm here. There might be more. I can only see what's public. You need a forensic accountant. I need a lot of things. She hung up. She set the phone on the counter. She walked to the bathroom. She turned on the bathtub faucet. She sat down in the tub fully clothed. Her shoes were still on. The water rose cold around her ankles. She didn't adjust the temperature. She stared at the tile wall and counted the squares. 144. She counted them twice to make sure. The water reached her waist. She turned off the faucet. She sat in the cold water in her jeans and her cotton shirt, and she breathed. In for 4, out for 4, in for 4, out for 4. He stole my parents' house, she whispered. He stole the only thing I had left of them. She sat in the bathtub for 37 minutes. When she got out, the floor was soaked. Her clothes dripped on the tile. She stripped everything off, put on dry clothes, and mopped the floor. Then she picked up her phone and called Delia. I need your help, she said. Finally, Delia said. Tell me everything. Delia arrived within the hour. She walked through the front door carrying a tote bag full of takeout containers and a legal pad. Eat first, she said. Then war. Colleen didn't argue. She hadn't eaten a real meal in 4 days. They sat at the kitchen island and ate pad thai from white containers. The food was too spicy. Colleen's eyes watered. She wasn't sure it was the chili flakes. While they ate, Delia made a list. She was good at lists. 48 years old, divorced herself 6 years ago, 2 kids in college, worked as an office manager for a dental practice. Delia had no legal training. She had something better. She had survived her own version of this. First, Delia said, attorney. I know someone, Russell Harding. He represented my friend Janet in her divorce. Janet got the house, both cars, and alimony for 6 years. Janet's husband was also hiding money. Russell found it all. How much does he cost? Colleen asked. More than you want, less than you'll lose without him. That afternoon, Colleen drove to Russell Harding's office. It was in a brick building on South Tryon Street. Second floor, modest, no marble lobbies, no fancy artwork. The receptionist offered water. Colleen accepted. Russell was 50 years old, bald, reading glasses perched on his forehead. He wore a blue button-down with the sleeves rolled up. He looked like someone's reliable uncle. He shook Colleen's hand firmly and gestured to a chair. Tell me everything, he said. Start wherever you want. Colleen talked for 45 minutes. She didn't cry. She laid it out like a blueprint. The toast, the closet, the second phone, the 14 months of messages, the power of attorney, the lake house, the shell company, the second jewelry purchase, all of it. Russell listened without interrupting. He took notes on a yellow legal pad. His handwriting was tiny and precise. When Colleen finished, Russell set his pen down. He leaned back in his chair. Mrs. Mercer, he said, your husband made a very expensive mistake. He explained. The forged property transfer alone could constitute fraud. Combined with the hidden LLC and the asset concealment, Grant had given Colleen legal leverage that most divorcing spouses would never dream of having. But we have to be strategic, Russell said. He doesn't know you know. That's your biggest advantage right now. The moment he finds out you've seen the financial picture, he'll start covering his tracks. What do I do? Nothing yet. Go home. Act normal. I'll get a forensic accountant started this week. We build the case quietly. When we're ready, we file. Not before, Colleen nodded. Act normal? I know it's hard. I've been acting normal for 22 years, Colleen said. I'm an expert. Russell almost smiled. I believe you are. She drove home. The late afternoon sun cut through the windshield. She thought about what Russell said. Expensive mistake. She thought about Grant at the valet stand. The gesture, his hand moving from her face to her feet, dismissing her. Something shifted in her chest. Not sadness, not grief. Something harder, something with edges. I'm not going to cry over a man who stole my family's lake house, she thought. I'm going to take it back. That evening, her phone rang. The caller ID showed a name she didn't expect. Warren Hale, Grant's business partner of 18 years. Calling, Warren said. His voice was rough, tired. I'm not supposed to be calling you. Then why are you? Because there are things you need to know, and I'm not going to be able to live with myself if I stay quiet. They met the next morning at a diner outside town. Harper's, vinyl booths, coffee that tasted like it had been sitting since dawn. Warren looked terrible. Dark circles, his tie was loosened, he ordered nothing. The $33 million deal, Warren began. Grant didn't land it alone. Colleen waited. The client chose our company because of the brand, the identity, the operational systems from the early days. They specifically referenced the culture and cohesion of Mercer Distribution. They used those exact words in the meeting. He looked at Colleen. You built that brand, Colleen. The logo, the office design, the client materials, the culture. You built the thing they bought. Colleen's hands were wrapped around her coffee mug. The ceramic was warm and slightly chipped at the rim. He stood on your shoulders and then kicked you off the ladder, Warren said. But there was more. 3 weeks ago, Grant offered Warren a buyout, a fraction of fair market value. Warren refused. Grant threatened to dissolve the partnership entirely. He's cutting everyone out, Warren said. You, me, anyone who remembers who he was before the money, anyone who knows the truth about how this company was really built. Colleen stared at the coffee. A skin of cream had formed on the surface. Thank you, Warren, she said, for telling me. I should have told you sooner. Yes, you should have. He flinched. She didn't apologize for it. She drove home and called Nora. She didn't plan to tell her daughter. She planned to say everything was fine, to protect her, to carry this alone the way she had carried everything else. But Nora answered the phone and said, Mom, I already know. Silence. Delia called me, Nora said. I'm driving home. 3 hours later, Nora walked through the front door. 19 years old, college sophomore, brown hair pulled back in a messy knot. She saw her mother's face and didn't ask what happened. She just crossed the room and held her. They stood in the kitchen for a long time, Nora's arms around Colleen's shoulders, Colleen's hands on her daughter's back. Neither of them spoke. Then Nora pulled back. Her eyes were dry but fierce. I knew something was wrong, Nora said. That woman at the company event 6 months ago, Bryn. She touched Dad's arm, and he didn't flinch. You know how Dad is about personal space. He never lets people touch him, but he didn't flinch. You noticed that? I told myself I was imagining it. Nora's jaw tightened. I wasn't. Colleen looked at her daughter. 19 years old and already learning the same lesson. The signs are always there. We just choose not to read them. That night, after Nora went to her old bedroom, Colleen called her mother. She performed fine flawlessly, cheerful voice, casual tone. Just checking in, Mom. How's the garden? Her mother talked about tomatoes for 11 minutes. Colleen said, and, oh, really? And that's great, Mom. She hung up. The phone barely hit the counter before she slid down the kitchen wall and sat on the cold tile floor. Her hands pressed against her face. She breathed in sharp, jagged bursts. Not crying, something deeper, something that had been compressed in her chest for years, slowly leaking out. Teddy found her. He came downstairs for water and saw his mother on the floor. 16 years old, quiet kid. He didn't panic. He filled a glass of water, set it on the floor beside her, and sat down next to her without a word. They sat on the kitchen floor together for 15 minutes. He didn't ask if she was okay. She didn't pretend to be. "We're going to be all right, Mom," he said finally. "I know," she said. She wasn't sure she believed it yet, but hearing Teddy say it made her want to. Colleen did what she did best. She designed, not a room, a case. She converted the guest bedroom into a workspace. Printouts taped to the walls, timelines drawn on poster board, account statements that Margot helped her access, organized by date. Property records from the county clerk's office, screenshots from the second phone, printed and arranged chronologically. Red string, connecting related documents, blue string for financial trails, green for lies. Delia walked in on day 2 and stopped in the doorway. She looked at the walls, she looked at the timeline, she looked at the strings. "You've lost your mind," she said. "No," Colleen said, taping another printout to the wall. "I just found it." Russell called that afternoon. His forensic accountant had preliminary findings. "The LLC wasn't just for the lake house," Russell said. "Grant funneled unreported income through it. Consulting fees, speaking engagements, side deals. He's been skimming from his own company for at least 2 years." "How much?" "We're still calculating, but enough to attract attention if it were reported." "Attention from who?" "The IRS." Colleen sat down. She was in the guest bedroom, surrounded by her evidence walls. The air conditioner hummed. A cardinal landed on the windowsill, outside, and pecked at the glass. "He didn't just cheat on me," she said. "No," Russell said. "He cheated on everyone, including the federal government." She almost laughed. Almost. The absurdity of it. 22 years of marriage. She thought the worst thing was the affair. The affair was just the surface. Beneath it was a man who had been systematically dismantling their shared life and rebuilding it in his name only. She was never his partner. She was his cover. "What do we do?" she asked. "We keep building. Quietly. I want every document, every transfer, every account. When we file, I want our case to be airtight. I don't want him to have room to breathe." "How long?" 2 to 3 weeks. Can you hold on that long?" "I've been holding on for 22 years. A few more weeks won't kill me." The next Saturday, Grant came to the house, unannounced. Colleen was in the kitchen. Nora had gone back to school. Teddy was upstairs with headphones on. She heard the garage door open, then voices. 2 voices. She walked to the front window and looked out. Grant was in the driveway. Next to him, stepping out of the passenger side of his Mercedes, was a woman, young, late 20s, blonde highlights, white jeans, sunglasses pushed up on her head, Bryn Calloway. In Colleen's driveway, in broad daylight. Grant rang the doorbell of his own house like a visitor. Colleen didn't move. Teddy came downstairs. He looked through the sidelight window next to the door. He saw his father. He saw the woman. Teddy opened the door. He looked at Grant. He looked at Bryn. He said nothing. He turned around and walked back inside. He closed the door. The latch clicked. The sound was small and final. Grant called Colleen's cell. She answered. "Tell the boy to come say hello," Grant said. Colleen's voice didn't shake. She was surprised by that. "You brought that woman to our children's home. I have nothing to say to you. My attorney will be in contact." She hung up. Teddy was standing in the hallway. His headphones around his neck, his face unreadable. "Mom, are you okay?" "I will be." He nodded. He went back upstairs. A moment later, she heard music through his closed door. Loud, angry drums, and bass. The house vibrated slightly. She stood in the hallway and let the music wash over her. She thought about Grant standing in the driveway with that woman. The audacity, the sheer gall of bringing his mistress to the house where his children grew up, where Colleen had painted the nursery for Nora, where she'd planted the hydrangeas out front, where she'd hosted 20 Thanksgiving dinners. I'm not sad anymore, she thought. I'm furious. Over the next week, Grant controlled the narrative publicly. He posted photos on social media, a yacht party, Bryn on his arm in a red dress, champagne, sunset. He told mutual friends that Colleen let herself go. He implied the divorce was mutual, amicable, a natural conclusion. Warren called Colleen. He's telling everyone you agreed to this. Let him, Colleen said. Narratives can be rewritten. She called Russell. How much longer? The forensic accountant found something significant. Can you come in tomorrow? She could. At 11 that night, Colleen stood in her kitchen. It was spotless. She had cleaned it twice already, but she opened the oven and began scrubbing the interior. It was already clean. She scrubbed anyway. She scrubbed until her fingers were raw and her forearms ached. Then she scrubbed the sink, the faucet. She reorganized the spice cabinet alphabetically, then by frequency of use, then alphabetically again. At 3 in the morning, she stopped. Her hands were red and cracked. The kitchen gleamed. She stood in the middle of it, breathing hard, and realized she had no memory of the last hour, just the sound of scrubbing and the smell of cleaning solution. She went to bed. She slept for 3 hours. She dreamed about the lake house. In the dream, the dock was gone. The water was black. She stood on the shore calling for someone. No one answered. The next morning, her phone rang. The caller ID read, Jeanette Mercer. Grant's mother. Colleen answered. Sweetheart, Jeanette said. Her voice was thick. She had been crying. I raised that boy, and I am ashamed of him. I don't know where I went wrong, but I know you didn't deserve this. Whatever you need from me, you have it. Colleen pressed her hand against her mouth. This was the call that broke something loose. Not the affair, not the forged documents, not the driveway. Grant's own mother calling to say she stood with Colleen. Thank you, Jeanette, she managed. There's something else, Jeanette said. Grant's father, before he passed, he set up a trust, a family trust, and he specifically named you as a beneficiary. He adored you, Colleen. He always said you were the best thing that ever happened to this family. Grant might not even know this document exists. His father set it up with his own attorney. Colleen sat down. Are you sure? I have the papers. I'll bring them to you myself. That afternoon, Jeanette drove to Colleen's house. They sat on the back porch in the old wicker chairs. Sweet tea in tall glasses. The ice clinked. A cardinal landed on the railing. The same one, Colleen thought, that had been visiting the window. Jeanette handed over a manila envelope. Inside was the trust document. Colleen's name was right there, in ink, in Grant's father's handwriting. They sat in silence for a long time. The cardinal tilted its head and flew away. The sweet tea sweated in the humidity. Neither of them filled the silence. Some silences don't need filling. Some silences are the conversation. Russell Harding's conference room had a long walnut table and no windows. Fluorescent lights. A pitcher of water with lemon slices floating on top. The kind of room where lives were dissected under artificial light. Colleen sat on one side. Russell sat beside her. Across from them, spread in neat stacks, were the forensic accountant's findings. Let me walk you through this, Russell said. He put on his reading glasses. The shell company, Granite Holdings. Your husband used it to funnel approximately $680,000 in unreported income over 2 years. Consulting fees, speaking honorariums, a real estate commission from a commercial property he helped broker on the side. Colleen listened. Her face was still. The lake house transfer. The notarized document bears your signature, but our handwriting expert says it's inconsistent with your known samples. The notary listed on the document is a man named Dennis Falk. He works with Grant's personal attorney. We believe the signature was either forged or obtained through the expired power of attorney, which was never properly rescinded. What does that mean legally? It means the transfer is potentially fraudulent. It means your husband committed forgery or enabled it. It means the lake house should never have left your name. Russell set down a second stack. There's more. The original partnership agreement for Mercer Distribution. Drafted 20 years ago when the company was operating out of your garage. It lists 4 stakeholders: Grant Mercer, Warren Hale, an early investor named Douglas Kemp who sold his share in 2009, and Colleen Mercer, 10% equity. Colleen blinked. Grant told me that agreement was dissolved when they incorporated. It wasn't. The incorporation documents reference the original partnership agreement, but don't supersede it. Your 10% stake was never formally bought out or terminated. It's legally binding. 10% of a company that just closed a $33 million deal. Colleen's hands were flat on the walnut table. She could feel the grain of the wood under her fingertips. She could hear the fluorescent lights buzzing. She could smell the lemon in the water pitcher. I slept next to this person for 22 years, she said. Russell gave her a moment. Mrs. Mercer, we can file quietly, or we can make it very loud. How loud? Front page of the business section loud. His investors, his clients, his social circle, everyone would know. Colleen thought about it. She thought about the yacht photos, the red dress, the whispered narrative that she was the one who gave up. She thought about how satisfying it would be to watch his carefully curated image explode. Then she thought about Nora, and Teddy, and Jeanette. File quietly, she said. I don't need the world to watch him fall. I just need him to fall. Russell nodded. We file next week. 3 days later, the charity gala, the annual fundraiser for the Charlotte Children's Hospital. Black tie, silent auction, 400 guests. Colleen had been on the planning committee for 9 years. She wasn't going to attend. She had written a polite email declining. Then Delia called. You're going. I can't. You can and you will. You planned this event for 9 years. You're not going to hide while he parades around with his accessory. Colleen went. She wore a simple black dress, no jewelry, no pearls, no pretense. She looked exactly like herself, and she didn't apologize for any of it. The ballroom was gold and white, flowers everywhere, a string quartet in the corner. Colleen walked in, and the room shifted slightly. Heads turned, not dramatically, just enough. The Whisper Network had been active. Everyone knew about Grant and Colleen. Everyone had an opinion. She found her table. She sat down. She drank water. She talked to the woman next to her about the silent auction items. Normal things. Safe things. Grant arrived at 8:15. He wore a charcoal suit. Bryn was beside him in emerald green. They looked like a magazine cover. Grant's hand was on Bryn's lower back. Proprietary. He scanned the room, and his eyes found Colleen. His expression flickered. Not guilt, annoyance, like she was an inconvenience at his party. Colleen held his gaze for 3 full seconds. Then she turned back to her conversation. A woman named Diane approached their table 20 minutes later. Loud voice, wine-flushed cheeks. Colleen, we heard about the divorce. How are you holding up? The surrounding tables got quieter. Forks paused midair. The string quartet played on. Colleen smiled. I'm doing better every day, Diane. Thank you for asking. It must be so hard, after all those years. It has its moments, but I have wonderful friends and family, and a very good attorney. She said the last part at normal volume. Not pointed, just factual. Diane moved on. The tables resumed their noise. Grant steered Bryn to the opposite side of the ballroom. But Colleen noticed something. Bryn kept looking back. Not with smugness, not with triumph. With an expression Colleen couldn't name at first. Then she recognized it. Recognition. Bryn was seeing something in Colleen that she recognized in herself. The gala ended at 10. Colleen drove to a hotel. She had booked a room because going home to the empty house after seeing Grant with Bryn in public was more than she could face tonight. The hotel room was beige, standard lamp, standard bed, standard painting of flowers on the wall. She kicked off her shoes and sat on the edge of the bed. She was fine. She was absolutely fine. Then she wasn't. It started in her chest, a pressure that had been building for weeks, months, years. It broke through like water through a dam. She slid off the bed, onto the bathroom floor. The tile was cold. Her black dress pooled around her. She sobbed. Not elegant crying, ugly, gasping, full-body sobbing that came from somewhere primal. Her mascara ran. Her nose ran. She made sounds she didn't recognize. She called Delia. No answer. She called her mother. Too late. She almost called Grant. Muscle memory. 22 years of reaching for him when she was hurting. Her thumb hovered over his name. She put the phone down on the tile floor. She lay on the bathroom floor and cried until the crying stopped on its own, like a storm passing. She didn't decide to stop. Her body just ran out. Then she sat up. Her face was swollen. Her dress was wrinkled. She looked like a woman who had just survived something. She reached for her purse to find a tissue. Her hand found an old envelope tucked into the side pocket. Cream-colored, her own handwriting on the front. She pulled it out, a letter. Written 5 years ago at a women's retreat she'd attended in Asheville. One of those workshops where you write a letter to your future self. She'd forgotten about it. She must have tucked it in the purse and never moved it. She opened it. Dear Colleen, if you're reading this, I hope you finally stopped shrinking yourself to fit someone else's idea of who you should be. You were always enough, even when no one told you. Especially then. Love, you. She read it 4 times. The 4th time, something in her chest didn't hurt. Something in her chest felt solid, like a beam locking into place. I wrote this when I already knew, she thought. 5 years ago, some part of me already knew, and I was already trying to tell myself the truth. She stood up. She washed her face. She folded the letter and put it back in her purse. She ordered room service, a cheeseburger and a glass of red wine. She ate both in bed, watching a documentary about the ocean, and fell asleep with the light on. The next day, she went shopping. She needed professional clothes for the legal meetings ahead. She walked into a department store and headed for the women's section. She found the dressing room. She stood there, holding 3 outfits, staring at the curtain. She couldn't go in. She couldn't stand in front of a full-length mirror and look at herself. Not after what Grant said. Not after the gesture. His hand moving from her face to her feet. All of her. Dismissed. She grabbed the outfits. She held them against her body. She checked the fabric, the weight of the material, the stretch. She bought them by how they felt, not how they looked. She didn't check the size tags. She paid at the register and walked to her car. She put the bags in the trunk. She sat in the driver's seat and breathed. I used to love clothes, she thought. I used to love getting dressed. When did I start hiding? She didn't have the answer yet. But she was asking the question. That was new. Russell called on a Tuesday morning. Something unexpected, he said. Bryn Calloway contacted my office. She wants to meet. Colleen was standing in the kitchen. The coffee maker gurgled. The morning light was gray through the window. Why? She says she has information. She says she wants to give it to us, voluntarily. Is this a trap? Possibly, but I've spoken with her briefly. I don't think so. I think she's scared. Colleen's stomach tightened. The thought of sitting across from Bryn Calloway made her nauseous. This was the woman in the messages, the woman in the photos, the woman on Grant's arm at the gala. She called Delia. Go, Delia said immediately. I don't want to. I know. Go anyway, know your enemy, or discover she's not one. The meeting was at Russell's office. Same conference room, same fluorescent lights, same pitcher of water with lemon. Colleen arrived first. She sat in her new professional clothes, the ones she'd bought by feel, and she waited. Bryn arrived 10 minutes later. She looked different than at the gala. Smaller, no emerald dress, no confidence armor. She wore a gray blouse and black pants. Her hair was pulled back. She sat down across from Colleen and Russell and folded her hands on the table. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The fluorescent lights hummed. Colleen studied her. 29 years old, angular features, sharp eyes. She wasn't the cartoonish homewrecker Colleen had built in her imagination. She was a young woman with chipped nail polish and dark circles under her eyes. Bryn spoke first. I'm not here to apologize. Her voice was steady but thin. I know that's not enough, and I know you don't want to hear it. You're right, Colleen said. I don't. I'm here because I found out what kind of man Grant really is, and because I have documents he doesn't know I have. Russell leaned forward. Tell us. Bryn's story came out in pieces. She grew up in rural Georgia, single mother, waitressing through community college, transferred to a state school, graduated with a marketing degree and a mountain of debt. She clawed her way into the corporate world. Social media strategy, brand consulting, she was good at it. Grant hired her to rebrand Mercer Distribution 18 months ago. The flirting started immediately. She resisted at first. He was her client. He was married. He was 20 years older, but he was persistent, charming, generous, and he told her a story that made it all permissible. He told me you'd been separated for 2 years, Bryn said. She looked directly at Colleen. He told me you were living in different parts of the house, that you had an agreement, an understanding. He said you were staying together for the kids until they graduated. None of that was true, Colleen said. I know that now. Bryn's voice cracked, just slightly. She pressed her lips together and regained control. He told me what I needed to hear, and I heard it because I wanted to. Colleen felt something unexpected. Not forgiveness, not sympathy. Recognition. She recognized the experience of being told a story by Grant Mercer and choosing to believe it. There's more, Bryn said. I'm not the first. Colleen's chest tightened. There was a woman before me. Her name was Vivian. I found texts between them on Grant's laptop. He left his email open. The messages go back 3 years. He used the same language with her, the same lies, the same playbook. Did you confront him? Yes, he did what he always does, deflection. You're overreacting. It didn't mean anything. You're being crazy. He actually told me I was imagining things. Bryn paused. Sound familiar? Colleen closed her eyes. The same words. Exactly the same words. A script. Grant had a script. When I pushed harder, Bryn continued, he turned it around on me. Suddenly, I was the unstable one, the jealous one, the one ruining everything. I started to believe it. For about a week, I actually thought I was the problem. The room was quiet. Then I saw you at the gala, Bryn said. You walked in alone, no jewelry, no one on your arm. You didn't hide. You sat down and talked to people, and you didn't run. And I thought, that woman is stronger than I'll ever be. Colleen opened her eyes. I'm not doing this for you, Bryn said. I'm doing this because he lied to me too. And because watching you walk into that room, alone, made me realize I've been hiding my whole life. She opened her bag and placed a folder on the table. Inside were printed emails, financial summaries, and photos of documents Grant had shown her during late nights at his apartment. He had bragged. He showed her spreadsheets and account balances. He was careless because he thought she was too dazzled to understand the numbers. She understood them perfectly. She was a marketing strategist with a head for data. She understood everything. Russell took the folder. He flipped through the pages. His expression didn't change, but Colleen saw his grip tighten on the paper. This is comprehensive, he said. He thought I was arm candy, Bryn said. Men always do. Colleen looked at Bryn for a long moment. She didn't embrace her. She didn't forgive her. But she nodded once. Thank you for telling the truth, Colleen said. Bryn nodded back. She stood. She picked up her bag. She walked to the door. Mrs. Mercer, she said, turning back. For what it's worth. He talked about you constantly, about how you used to be, about the early days. He never talked about the future with me. He only talked about the past with you. She left. The door clicked shut. Russell set the folder down. This changes everything. With these documents and what we already have, Grant Mercer has no viable defense. Colleen stared at the closed door. She thought about Bryn's words. He never talked about the future with me. He only talked about the past with you. Grant didn't leave Colleen for a better future. He left because looking at her reminded him of who he used to be. And he hated that person. The man in the garage. The man who needed help. He didn't trade me in for a newer model, Colleen thought. He tried to erase the evidence that he was ever small. The realization didn't make it hurt less, but it made it make sense. She started walking the next morning, not to lose weight, to think. 3 miles along the greenway near her house. No phone, no music, just the sound of her feet on the gravel path and the birds in the trees overhead. She called a therapist named Dr. Wynn. First session, a small office with 2 chairs and a box of tissues on the side table. What do you want, Colleen? Dr. Wynn asked. Colleen opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She sat there with her lips parted and her mind completely blank. She had never been asked that question. Not once. Not by Grant. Not by her parents. Not by herself. I want to find out, she said finally. Dr. Wynn nodded. That's the best possible answer. That Sunday, Colleen made pot roast, her mother's recipe, the one that took 4 hours. She chopped the carrots into identical pieces, exactly the way her mother taught her. She browned the meat in the old Dutch oven she'd inherited along with the recipe sump. The house filled with the smell. Garlic, rosemary, onions caramelizing, beef braising. She stood at the stove, and something broke loose in her chest. She cried, not for Grant, not for the marriage, for her mother, who died 3 years ago and never knew about any of this, for the woman Colleen used to be, the one who designed offices and cold-called clients and dreamed bigger than anyone expected. For all the Sunday dinners she cooked in this kitchen for a man who ate quickly and went back to his phone. For the pot roast that deserved to be eaten slowly, with gratitude, with presence. She cried standing at the stove, with a wooden spoon in her hand and rosemary stuck to her sleeve. Then she wiped her face with a dish towel and finished cooking. She ate dinner at the table. Not the counter, the table. She used a real plate. She poured a glass of wine. She sat down and ate slowly. I don't need to become someone new, she thought. I need to remember who I was before I forgot. Russell filed on a Wednesday. By Thursday afternoon, Grant Mercer knew exactly how much trouble he was in. His own attorney, a sharp man named Philip Crane, called Russell and asked for a meeting. His tone was professional. Beneath the professionalism was something Colleen recognized: panic. The forensic evidence was devastating. The hidden LLC, the unreported income, the forged property transfer, the expired power of attorney, the original partnership agreement with Colleen's 10% equity stake. And now, Bryn's documents, which included photos of financial records Grant had voluntarily shown to his mistress. Records that contradicted his tax filings. Russell explained it to Colleen simply. If this goes to litigation, everything becomes discovery. Discovery becomes public record. Public record reaches the IRS. Your husband isn't just facing a divorce. He's facing potential criminal investigation. Grant called Warren first. What did you tell her? Warren's answer was 3 words. The truth, Grant. Grant called Jeanette. Mom, you need to stay out of this. Jeanette's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. I've stayed out of it your whole life, Grant. That's the problem. Grant called Bryn. Her number was disconnected. Grant called Colleen. She didn't answer. He called again. She didn't answer. He called a 3rd time. She let it ring. She watched his name pulse on the screen. She counted the rings. 7. Then silence. Over the next 10 days, Grant's carefully constructed new life began to crack. The yacht party friends stopped calling. 2 investors privately contacted Warren to ask if the company's financials were legitimate. A reporter from the Charlotte Business Journal left a message at Grant's office asking about irregularities in a recent acquisition filing. Grant's attorney called Russell again. 1 word of advice: settle. During those 10 days, Colleen was quiet. She walked every morning. She saw Dr. Wynne every Wednesday. She had dinner with Delia on Fridays. She worked on the evidence walls in the guest bedroom, but less frantically now. More like an architect reviewing blueprints, making sure every beam was in place. Teddy wrote his father an email. He showed it to Colleen first. She told him it was his decision. He sent it. The email was 7 lines long. Dad, I heard you tell Mom she let herself go. Mom didn't let herself go. She let everything go for you. Your schedule, your stress, your dreams. She carried all of it. The only thing she let go of was herself, and you punished her for it. I don't know when I'll be ready to talk to you, but not yet. Grant read it in his car. He was parked outside his apartment. The engine was off. The air conditioning was off. It was September, and the heat was thick. He read the email twice. His hands shook. He sat in that car for a long time. The leather seat burned through his shirt. Sweat ran down his temples. He didn't start the engine. He just sat there, holding his phone, rereading 7 lines that his 16-year-old son had written with more clarity and courage than Grant had shown in his entire adult life. Meanwhile, Colleen was at the lake house. She drove there alone on a Saturday morning. 2 hours on the highway. She hadn't been there since the property transfer was discovered. The house was smaller than she remembered. White clapboard, green shutters. The dock needed new planks. The garden had gone wild with weeds and volunteer tomatoes. Her mother's wind chime still hung from the porch beam. It clinked in the breeze, a high, thin sound. She walked through every room, kitchen, living room, 2 bedrooms. The bathroom, with the cracked tile her father was always going to fix. The closet where she hid during thunderstorms as a child. The window seat where she read her first novel. Grant had never loved this house. He called it the shack. He tolerated it for Colleen's sake. She saw now that his contempt for the lake house was the same as his contempt for everything that came before the money. The garage, the cold calls, the folding chairs, her. She sat on the dock. Her feet dangled over the water. The lake was green and still. Dragonflies hovered over the surface. The wood was warm from the sun. "This is mine," she said aloud. "And I'm getting it back." She drove home. She called Russell. "I'm ready for the settlement meeting." The settlement conference was held on a Tuesday morning. Same conference room, same walnut table, Russell and Colleen on one side, Grant and Philip Crane on the other. Grant looked different. Not the man who made the toast 6 weeks ago. He had lost weight. His charcoal suit hung slightly loose at the shoulders. His eyes were red-rimmed. He couldn't make eye contact with Colleen. He stared at the table, at his hands, at the water pitcher. Russell laid out the terms. The lake house, restored to Colleen's name immediately. Full equity payout for her 10% stake in Mercer Distribution. 50% of all marital assets, including the accounts Grant had attempted to hide. College funds for Nora and Teddy, untouched and transferred to Colleen's control. Spousal support for 7 years. And a formal acknowledgement of Colleen's contribution to the company's founding in corporate records. Philip Crane leaned in and whispered to Grant. Grant's jaw tightened. A muscle flickered in his cheek. His knuckles were white on the edge of the table. "Fine," Grant said. His voice was hoarse. "All of it. Fine." He signed every page. Russell had the documents prepared. Page after page. Grant's pen moved mechanically. He didn't read the details. He just signed. When it was done, Grant stood. He looked at Colleen for the first time since the meeting began. "Colleen," he started. "Don't," she said. Not angrily, just firmly. The way you close a door that doesn't need to be opened again. He left. Philip Crane followed. The door closed. Russell gathered the documents. "That went as well as it could." Colleen nodded. She was looking at the table. At the space where Grant had been sitting, at the indentation his pen had left on the legal pad. "Thank you, Russell." "You did this, Mrs. Mercer. I just held the flashlight." She walked to her car. The parking garage was dim and cool. Her heels echoed on the concrete. She unlocked the Lexus with the dented bumper and sat behind the wheel. She held the steering wheel the same way she held it the night of the toast. Both hands, 10 and 2. She breathed. In for 4, out for 4. Her phone rang. Delia. "How did it go?" Colleen paused. "I got it all back." "The house? The money?" "No," Colleen said. The word surprised her. It came from somewhere deeper than the settlement documents. "Me. I got me back." Delia was quiet for a moment. "Come over. I'm making dinner." "I'll be there in 20 minutes." She started the car. She pulled out of the garage into the sunlight. The sky was blue. Ridiculously, impossibly blue. The kind of blue that felt like it was showing off. She drove to Delia's with the windows down. 3 weeks after the settlement, Grant called. It was a Sunday evening. Colleen was on the couch with a book she'd been meaning to read for 2 years. A novel about a woman who sails around the world alone. She was on chapter 6. The house was quiet. Teddy was at a friend's. A candle burned on the coffee table. Vanilla and cedar. Her phone lit up. Grant. She considered not answering. She had no legal obligation to speak with him. The papers were signed. The assets were divided. The lake house was back in her name. Russell's work was done. She answered anyway. She wasn't sure why. "Colleen." His voice was different. Stripped. No charm. No rehearsal. Just her name. Spoken the way he used to say it in the early years. Before the money, before the suits, before the Mercedes. "Grant, I need to talk to you." "You're talking." A pause. She heard him breathe. She used to find comfort in that sound. His breathing beside her in bed. The rhythm of it. The certainty. "I made the worst mistake of my life," he said. "I know. Bryn is gone. She left 3 weeks ago, moved to Atlanta." "I know that too." "The apartment is empty. I mean, There's furniture, nice furniture, but it's empty. There's nothing in it that means anything. There's no pot roast smell, no music from Teddy's room, no Nora's books on every surface. There's nothing. Colleen listened. The candle flickered, a moth bumped against the window screen outside. I keep thinking about that night at the restaurant. Grant continued. The toast. I raised my glass, and I said to my beautiful new life, and I was so sure, Colleen. I was so certain that everything ahead of me was better than everything behind me. And now? Now I go home to a place that looks like a hotel room. I eat takeout alone. I watch shows I don't care about. Nobody calls except my attorney. My own mother won't return my calls for 3 days at a time. Teddy's email is taped to my refrigerator. I read it every morning. Colleen said nothing. I was wrong, Grant said. About everything. About the money. About what matters. About you. About me. You were the foundation, Colleen. The whole time, I was so busy climbing that I forgot who built the ground I was standing on. Colleen closed her book. She set it on the coffee table beside the candle. She looked at the cover. A woman on a sailboat, hair blowing, water stretching to the horizon. Grant, she said, I appreciate you saying this. I believe you mean it. I do. But you don't miss me. You miss what I did for you. You miss the dinners, the clean house, the woman who organized your life and never complained. You miss the service, not the person. That's not true. When was my birthday? Silence. March 14th, he said, slowly. She could hear him searching for it. What's my favorite book? Longer silence. What was my design business called? Nothing. Grant, in 22 years, you never learned those things. You never asked. I was there every day and you didn't see me. You saw the machine, the wife machine. When the machine got older and heavier and couldn't perform the way you wanted, you replaced it. That's not fair? It is completely fair. And I say that without anger. I spent weeks being angry. I spent months before that being sad without knowing why. But I'm not angry anymore. I'm clear. Can we try again? His voice cracked. Please. No. The word was simple. One syllable. She said it without cruelty, without triumph, without hesitation. No, Grant, we can't try again. Because trying again means I go back to being the woman who searches signs your husband is cheating at 3 a.m. and then deletes the browser history. I go back to being the woman who eats alone and pretends it's fine. I go back to shrinking. She paused. I spent 22 years making myself smaller so you could feel bigger. And the moment you felt big enough, you threw me away. That's not a marriage I want to try again. That's a prison I finally escaped. Grant was crying. She could hear it. The wet, uneven breathing. The sound of a man confronting a loss he caused and cannot undo. She didn't feel satisfaction. She didn't feel vengeance. She felt something quieter, something that felt like putting down a heavy suitcase after carrying it through an airport that never ended. Take care of yourself, Grant, she said, and take care of our kids when they're ready to let you. She hung up. She sat on the couch for a long time. The candle burned low. The moth was still bumping against the window screen. She listened to the sound, soft, persistent, a small creature trying to reach the light. She picked up her book and found her page. Grant went back to his apartment. The leather couch, the blank walls, the view of the Charlotte skyline that impressed no one because there was no one there to impress. He opened the wedding album. Colleen had returned it with the settlement documents. The post-it note was still there. Remember? He remembered. He remembered the garage, the card table, the fax machine, Colleen cold-calling clients while pregnant, Colleen painting the office walls at midnight, Colleen staging the room to impress investors, Colleen making coffee in a real carafe. He remembered the woman in the photo, laughing, young, radiant, full of a future she trusted him to share. He had that woman. He had her completely, and he threw her away because she didn't look like the photo anymore. He closed the album. The city lights blinked outside. The apartment was silent, not peaceful silent, empty silent. The kind of silence that has weight. 6 months. That's how long it took for Colleen Mercer to rebuild her life. Not from scratch. You don't build from scratch when you're 42. You build from what's left. And it turned out more was left than she thought. She reopened her interior design practice, a small studio. The guest bedroom that used to be the war room with evidence walls became her office. She bought a drafting table from an estate sale. She hung her old design certificates on the wall. She dusted off her portfolio. Delia helped with the business side. Nora built her a website over winter break. Teddy took photos of her first completed project with his phone. The photos were slightly crooked. She used them anyway. Her first real client was a woman named Georgia, 51 years old, recently divorced, keeping the house, but couldn't stand to look at the living room because her ex-husband had chosen every piece of furniture in it. "I want it to feel like mine," Georgia said. Colleen understood that sentence in her bones. She redesigned Georgia's living room in 3 weeks. New colors, new arrangement. She kept the bookshelves because Georgia loved books. She replaced the leather recliner with an armchair in deep blue velvet. She hung art that Georgia chose herself. Watercolors from a local artist. Landscapes that meant nothing to anyone except Georgia. When Georgia walked into the finished room, she stood in the doorway for a long time. Then she sat down in the blue velvet chair and ran her hands along the arms. "It feels like home," she said. "For the first time in 20 years, it feels like my home." Word spread. Within 3 months, Colleen had a waiting list. Women going through transitions, divorces, empty nests, widowhood. Women who needed their physical space to reflect who they were becoming, not who they had been forced to be. Colleen didn't advertise. She didn't need to. Every client told 2 friends. Every redesigned room told its own story. She met Patrick Dunn at a community design workshop she was teaching at the Charlotte Arts Center. A Saturday morning class. 8 students, Colleen at the front with fabric swatches and mood boards. Patrick was in the back row. 46 years old. General contractor. Hands like sandpaper from 30 years of working with wood and concrete. Laugh lines around his eyes. A Red Wing boots and flannel shirt kind of man. He didn't sign up for the class because he needed design skills. He signed up because his daughter was redecorating her first apartment and he wanted to help without messing it up. After class, he approached Colleen. "You make it sound simple," he said. "The way you talk about space and light, like it's common sense." "It is common sense," Colleen said. "People just forget to listen to it." He nodded. He didn't ask for her number. He asked her opinion on load-bearing walls and pre-war buildings. She respected him immediately. They became friends first. He brought coffee to her job sites. Black coffee in a thermos, the kind that stays hot all morning. She helped him pick paint colors for his daughter's bedroom. Soft green, like new leaves. There was no rush, no performance, no champagne toasts or yacht parties. They talked about drywall and crown molding and the right temperature to stain hardwood. They argued about whether subway tile was timeless or overdone. She said timeless. He said overdone. Neither of them won. Both of them laughed. One evening, walking through a renovation together, the light coming through bare windows at that gold angle that happens in late afternoon, Patrick stopped and looked at Colleen. "You see things other people walk right past," he said. Colleen pulled a nail out of a door frame. I used to think that was a weakness. It's your superpower. She looked at him. He looked back. No pretense, no angle, no agenda. Just a man in work boots, standing in sawdust, telling a woman in paint-stained jeans that the thing she was ashamed of was the thing that made her extraordinary. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was a Tuesday evening in an unfinished kitchen. And it was more honest than anything she had experienced in 22 years of marriage. They took it slow, dinner eventually, then another dinner, then walks on Sunday mornings while the coffee cooled in travel mugs. Colleen told him about Grant on the third date, all of it. The toast, the phone, the lake house. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he said, "The man's a fool." That was all. No grand speech, no promises, no fixing, just accurate assessment and a refill of coffee. Grant, meanwhile, settled the IRS inquiry quietly. It cost him, significantly, not ruin. He was still wealthy by most measurements, but the swagger was gone. The yacht party friends had moved on to the next shiny thing. The charcoal suits fit loosely. The Mercedes felt too big for one person. Bryn was in Atlanta. She had started her own marketing firm. She never contacted Colleen again. Colleen never reached out. Some chapters end without an epilogue. Grant saw Teddy on alternate weekends. The conversations were stilted at first, father and son sitting across from each other at restaurants, searching for common ground that used to be automatic. But slowly, very slowly, they found their way to something. Not what it was before. Something new, more honest, more careful. Nora kept her distance. She called on holidays. She sent brief texts. She was not ready to forgive. Colleen didn't push. Forgiveness has its own timeline, and it doesn't take directions. Jeanette Mercer had Sunday dinners with Colleen once a month. They never discussed Grant at those dinners. They talked about gardening and cooking and the cardinal that kept appearing on the porch railing. Jeanette called it Harold, after her late husband. Colleen didn't question it. On a Saturday in April, Colleen took the kids to the lake house. The property transfer had been reversed. The deed was in her name, where it always should have been. She drove with the windows down. April in North Carolina smells like wisteria and fresh dirt. Nora was in the passenger seat, reading. Teddy was in the back, asleep with his headphones on. The lake house looked the same and different. She had repaired the dock over the winter. New planks, sanded smooth. She'd weeded the garden and planted tomatoes, the way her mother used to. The wind chime still hung from the porch beam. They spent the afternoon doing nothing remarkable. Nora cooked dinner in the small kitchen, some pasta recipe she'd learned at school. Too much garlic, not enough salt. Perfect. Teddy fished off the dock. He caught nothing. He didn't care. He stood at the end of the dock, with the line in the water and the sun on his face, and he looked, for the first time in months, like a kid instead of a boy carrying adult grief. Colleen sat on the porch. The wicker chair creaked. The lake was gold in the late light. She could hear Nora singing in the kitchen. Off-key, something from the radio. She could hear Teddy reeling in his empty line and casting it again. The rhythmic whir and splash. She opened her phone. She scrolled to the last photo of Grant in her camera roll. Him at the company Christmas party 2 years ago, smiling, handsome, confident, a man who had everything and valued nothing. She deleted it, not angrily, not ceremonially. The way you clear a counter of something that no longer belongs there. A simple motion. Then it was gone. She put her phone in her pocket. She picked up her glass of sweet tea. The ice had melted, but she drank it anyway, sweet and watered down, like the last of something. The sun was setting over the lake, orange and pink and that deep purple that only happens in spring. The water reflected it back doubled. the sky and its mirror. The cardinal landed on the porch railing. Herald, red in particular and bold, Colleen raised her glass toward the lake. "To my beautiful new life," she said. This time, she was looking right at it. The cardinal sang, one bright, clear note. Then it flew across the water and disappeared into the darkening trees. Colleen sat on the porch and listened to her children. The singing, the fishing line, the sounds of people. She loved being alive and present and close. The wind chime rang. The lake settled into evening. The first stars appeared. She thought about Grant's toast, the champagne, the chandelier, the way he looked past her as if she were already gone. She thought about the post-it note on the wedding album. Remember? She remembered. She remembered all of it. The garage, the cold calls, the pearl earrings and the double receipt, the bathtub and the cold water and the 144 tiles, the letter to her future self, the hotel bathroom floor, the pot roast and the rosemary, the forensic accountant, the settlement table, the word no spoken without cruelty. She remembered being a woman who designed beautiful spaces for other people while letting her own life fall into disrepair. She remembered the weight, not the 40 pounds, the other weight, the invisible kind, the kind that accumulates when you carry someone else's ambition on your back and call it love. He said I let myself go, she thought. But the truth is, I was holding on too tight, holding his dreams, holding his ego, holding a marriage together with both hands while he walked away with empty pockets and a full heart, full of himself. She set the glass down on the porch railing. The condensation left a ring on the old wood. The moment I let go of him was the moment I finally caught myself. Inside, Nora called out, "Mom, dinner's ready." Colleen stood up from the wicker chair. Her knees popped. She laughed at that. 42 years old, and her knees sounded like popcorn. She walked toward the screen door. The light from the kitchen was warm and yellow. Her daughter stood at the stove, holding a wooden spoon. Her son was washing his hands at the sink, still smelling like lake water. She paused in the doorway. She looked back at the lake one more time. The water was dark now. The stars were brighter. The wind chime played its thin, silver song. She was never the weight he had to lose. She was the foundation he couldn't build without. And now she was building something of her own. She walked inside and closed the screen door behind her. It latched with a soft click, a sound so small it barely existed. But she heard it. Some doors close. Some doors finally, mercifully, close. And on the other side of them, dinner is waiting. And the people who love you are calling your name. This content was carefully researched, crafted, and manually edited